Hello, Frugal Force. This is Captain Frugal reporting for duty, and today I'm going to be looking back to the Sega 32X for Spider-Man Web of Fire. And is it really worth the price tag? Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Has some games, some are nice, some are fun to play twice. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Wow, I wanted to get this game, Spider-Man Web of Fire, for the 32X for years, but with a price tag of over $700 for a complete copy and over $300 just to get a loose copy, I have to ask myself, was it really worth the price? Now, I'm going to be straightforward and upfront. I actually did this game with emulation because I yet to have an actual copy, but that's one of the reasons I did this. I tend to not like to use emulation unless I have the game, and I just use it sometimes to capture footage, but I have a very hard time finding this game, and that was one of the things. Am I willing to pay that much for it? Not really. Am I willing to search for it to find it out in the wild? Yeah, I'd still probably get it if I can find it out in the wild for cheap, just for collector's purposes. But would I be willing to pay a price for it just to play it? Was it really worth the price? Well, as I got to playing it and checking it out, here are my thoughts. Let's first talk about the game story a little bit. The Amazing Spider-Man is a side-scrolling action-adventure video game developed by BlueSky Software and published by Sega exclusively for their 32X add-on in North America in March of 1996, based on their super popular comic superhero, Spider-Man. It is inspired by the long-running comic book mythology and adaptations in other media as well. In the main storyline, the terrorist organization Hydra and the new enforcers orchestrate a plot that shroud New York City under the electrical plasma grid, trapping all the citizens in New York inside. Spider-Man must confront each of these new enforcer members to foil their plans. What you do is you fight that boss at the end of the level, and you break out that satellite, and that's creating that dome over the city, and then you'll move on and do another level and repeat the process and repeat again. The goal is to break those down and free the people of New York City. Now, I will say, you also get to get the aid of Daredevil. Now, this game was headed by co-producers Jerry Huber and Jerry Marcoda. Spider-Man Web of Fire was created by most of the same team that previously worked on several projects at BlueSky Software, such as Vector Man and its sequel. So you'd think, hey, this game's in pretty good hands, and you can see some similarities with the graphical style between the two, with that and Vector Man. So I get where they're coming from there. It was the last game released for the 32X platform in North America after Sega discontinued support for that add-on, which, to be honest, it didn't last very long. So they had a very limited amount of copies of this game produced. Henceforth, why the extreme high price for this game? It's not because how good it is, it's because of how rare it is. So, the backgrounds of this game were nice, but the assets were a constant problem. You keep seeing the same assets again and again and again. That's one of the things I noticed about this game. I do, though, like that you can get help from Daredevil, and trust me, he's very helpful. You're going to want to get him. And you get to fight Dragon Man, and that's pretty cool, too. Let's be honest there. But many people say that this game is incredibly hard. And I'm going to say, to a degree, that's true, but it's not. Once you start playing it and starting to learn where things are, it's not that hard anymore. But I will say there was an exception at the end where there's a time limit. That part was a real kick in the pants. But once you learn the ins and outs and where things are and how to deal with the controls, it wasn't as hard as people made it. It just takes some practice. And that's something a lot of your newer gamers don't get today as much as you got to dig in there and play and play and play and memorize those levels. A little bit more old school. Now, I'm not praising this game much. Don't get me wrong. This game does have problems. First and foremost, I noticed is the controls. It was too easy to get stuck on items that were going to hurt you. You also don't get many moves for a Spider-Man game either. I mean, you get a punch, a running kick, a web shot, and a web sling. Spider-Man's ability to stick to things, that, yeah, you should, but you stick to things that you shouldn't stick to. So it's making the mechanic not very fun. In Spider-Man Web of Fire, Spider-Man sticks to everything whether you want him to or not. And this becomes a very big hassle as Spider-Man just hits things that are going to kill you, and it takes you forever to get off of those things. So that was just not very, very good. Spider-Man had a tendency to attach himself to hazards like flaming oil pipes and all kinds of electrified things. And will probably end up dying from this a lot until you really get that mechanic down and how you cannot get even close to those things or he'll grip onto it. Another very big negative that was glaringly obvious to me is Spider-Man does not have spider sense. Yes, no spider sense for Spider-Man. It would have been a great tool to have in this game, so that way you could dodge items such as falling debris, because you're going to be frequently blindsided by out-of-sight obstacles. It's just the way the game was designed. You'll have things fall and you didn't even see it coming, or things coming from the side of the screen and you didn't. That's a glaring problem that could have easily been rectified with providing spider sense. I found this game to be nearly impossible due to the levels looking so similar and the landmarks so similar to realize when something was always going to come. So it made it harder to memorize when is this attack going to come, because everything looks so similar. Spider Sense would have fixed that whole problem and made it very easy. Now, another thing too that I think is quite glaring is anytime a game breaks you out of its immersion of being in the game, you want it to feel like you're there. You are Spider-Man. But in order to use Daredevil, you have to hit pause and then select Daredevil. Why couldn't there just be a button to hit like in Maximum Carnage or Separation Anxiety? Unlocking Daredevil on the first level was very cool though, since he's going to help you later on, and trust me, you want Daredevil. He's going to help you in those really thick of it situations, because Spider-Man, the mechanics of it are not really built well to fight multiple people at one time. If you find yourself surrounded, that is the time to use Daredevil, because otherwise your Spider-Man is going to get the crap kicked out of him. Now, this game used Z-list enemies. That's another problem I found with it. Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries in comics, yet the only decent enemy we had was Dragon Man. The game only had a few enemy types, making it not very appealing. The game, as I said, also reused assets consistently that you're going to see again and again and again. So you're going to see the same type of enemies constantly, and very few of them, I might add. And even the bosses. And at the final boss, really with the Adaptoid, he's just going to be like other type of bosses as well. So you don't really get much there. The game's not real long either, I might add. So after a few seconds in each level, you're going to be seeing a repeat of everything that was the same. So I was rather unimpressed with how this game looked and controlled as well compared to Spider-Man games, especially for the time. The game did not really look any better than Spider-Man on the Genesis or Maximum Carnage and Separation Anxiety. Come on, this was the 32X. I expected a bigger step up than what we actually seen here. In my opinion, I think this game was rushed out the door to get it out there to market with the final run of the 32X games, because the graphics just don't look finished. They're less than 30 sound effects as well, and the controls aren't very polished. So you've noticed that's a good reason of why maybe that game came out the way it did, and why we kept seeing the same artifacts over again and again and again, is because they didn't have time to really create new ones, especially with other enemy characters and things, which really brought the experience of the game down. Though I will say, the music was pretty decent. Now, the overall score of this game from other critics was generally mixed. Pretty darn mixed all around, from higher than I think it deserved and lower than I think it deserved as well. I personally would give this game probably a C-. If they took more time and had a little bit more differentiality in the characters, they had more assets in the game, that would have brought it up probably to a C+. If they would have worked on the mechanics of the game and how Spider-Man operated and moved, and make it more advantageous, where you don't have to hit the start button to pause the game to get Daredevil, where you didn't have to worry about accidentally attaching to things that are going to hurt you, I probably could have moved the game up to a B. To make it any better than that, it'd probably need a better cast overall, a little bit better graphical upgrade as well too. I think it's ended up being a C minus that could have easily been a B. Now, before you head out, don't forget the trivia question of the video. And today's trivia question, I do want it to be a little bit specific there. So once again, the first person to answer the question properly in the comments below gets the nerd cred of the no prize. Now, you get to show off to all your friends of how smart and knowledgeable you are in this trivia. So the question is, now this one I do want you to be a bit specific. So once again, be specific. The question is, where was the West Coast Avengers located? Once again, that is, where was the West Coast Avengers located? The first person to answer below in the comments section correctly will get that fabulous no prize. You know, the nerd cred. And come on now, no cheating. Don't look it up. All right, thanks for watching this video. Till next time, keep it cool.